Hello. Now, first, I have to see if we're actually on. We are a little bit spotty. Just write in the chat if we're having problems, because I think we're having internet trouble.
If
Damn.
if we disappear, they got us.
They got us. The internet portal sucked us in. But first announcement. This is our very first actual talk show. And I have to wish everybody happy triskaidekaphobia if you are afraid of the number 13. Today is the 13th day of the 7th month. If you believe in numerology, that's all I have to say. So let's welcome who's here, because we plan on doing this on a weekly basis.
Rev, there's no yarn.
No yarn. Well, there is yarn, but not today. I told them there's yarn, but not today. We have a special poll in the corner or wherever, however you view your screen. And we want to know, should we just leave this as an hour-long show? Should we adjust it based on the topic? Are we considered like the evil people and we should just get the hell off of YouTube and not even do this?
That's the one they're going to vote for.
That's the one they're going to vote for. I know, I always have to add that one in, but we get the hate mail, and you know something? We love hate mail. You want to send us hate mail? Because you know something? It means, hey, we stirred up a little controversy. Well, let's say hello who's in the show, and then we will get on to our topic, because today we're going to be talking about headless shit. Actually, I should probably watch my language. Headless stuff.
We're going to be talking.
Rev is in the house. Shadow woman who is going to go to an antique shop but is staying here with us. That's okay. There'll be stuff at the antique shop. You can go later on. 2 hip chicks are in the house with until hump day auction. Yes, Johnny is having his hump day auction after us. That's why we were saying, we're going to keep this around an hour or so. But we'll see how this goes. Paula is in the house. Susanna, which I have to laugh in her show. I was just in her talk show. She says, what am I going to do now that everybody's leaving? I'm like, we're going to be on in an hour. She's like, oh. So thank you for coming and thank you for promoting us, Susanna. We really appreciate that. But you're here not for talk. You're not here for hellos. You're not here for an auction. You are here to learn about, what's the topic?
The Headless Nun.
Headless Nun. Laura, take it away.
We are discussing the Headless Nun.
Go for it, Laura.
Now.
Yes, we want to hear this.
This dates back to the 1700s. So, the Headless Nun was an 18th century resident of an area named Sister Marie Incarnate. Okay. That's a French word for unknown. There you go.
She was the nameless
unknown place.
She was a nameless nun. She had no head. She had nameless. Yeah.
Nope. She had no head. So, the details in this story obviously vary on who is doing or looking it up. So, if you know another one, please type it in the chat. But she was beheaded because a mad trapper cut off her head and ran into the wood with it. So, the mad trapper, found his name, beheaded her for what reason? Just for fun, I guess, and took her head and ran away. Yeah.
Look at that, I'm frozen.
Then there is an alternative story where 2 sailors cut off her head. And so now she is roaming all over the place, looking for her head. She hasn't found it yet, so watch the woods near you, because she's going to be coming out to find her head. Maybe you have her head. Maybe you have the head she likes. I don't know. But I'd be careful if I were you.
Now, there's also a theory behind this that she was actually beheaded with the guillotine because they wanted information from her, and they went into the nunnery, tried to get information. She wouldn't give the information, so they brought her out to the guillotine and then chopped off her head.
Yeah.
Which
there are a few different theories on how this went wrong. Whether you believe 2 sailors, a mad trapper, or people looking for information, who knows? She no longer has a head.
But one thing that I love with all these stories, because what ends up happening with these ghost stories, these folklore, depending upon which area, there's so many similarities. And the word of mouth story, the story changes from demographic to demographic. And what's
Like
interesting,
playing the telephone game where you start out with one thing and by the time it hits the end, wasn't the same as the first.
but we did mention about the guillotine, which I want to make just a small segue because everybody loves to talk about the guillotine. That is that medieval torture device where they put them in and then it comes down and chops off their head. So
Robin, maybe it's your head she's looking for. I don't know.
and you could go on tours in France. They have these
Yes.
where you go trying to find her head. But I wanted to give you some interesting facts about the guillotine because that's what this show is all about. We're going to make weird segues and try to teach you things. And hey, we're learning in the meantime. So, with the guillotine, they used to believe that you instantly died. But then a scientist did some experiments and found out that you are actually still alive for 7 more seconds because the blood going through your brain. So when they used to lift up the head and the eyes would be open, you are literally looking at yourself decapitated for 7 seconds before you die.
Well, then I don't know if she can see or not see, but she's just looking for her head. So, or maybe the head's looking for her.
That is possible. And I know we are a little spotty. I hope you can hear us. We apologize. I was actually on the phone with the internet the other day about this very problem, and apparently they didn't fix it.
Well, basically, they told us that we didn't know what the hell we're doing. Yeah.
Yes, they're saying that for 7 seconds, you could still see and process your body. And of course, because your head is detached, you have that phantom body syndrome. So for 7 seconds, you actually believe you're still attached and you attempt to move your arms and legs and all that other stuff. So,
Robin, we weren't even going there right away. This will get there, but hey.
Yes. Other fun facts about the guillotine is there would be so much blood around that at the end of the, I'll call it show because it did turn out to be a show for a lot of people. The dogs, the stray dogs, cats,
Melanie, I don't know if everybody else is hearing you because
you're not hearing me?
I can hear you from the room, but I can't hear. You're going in and out really bad.
Oh no, it's the internet. We got to get this connection stable. Well, just tell us in the chat if you are having problems, and if it is, we will figure this out because, like I said, our connection's going in and out for some reason. And it always
right now you sound good, so take it away.
Good. Anyway, so after there was so much blood around the guillotine from obviously the blood gushing from the head, that the stray dogs and cats and rats would go over and start lapping up the blood, and they would gain the nutrients of the blood, and it was their food source. I sounded a bit robotic. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. And hello to everybody who did come in. We're just trying to, like I said, we're trying to introduce new topics. If you like these topics, we're going to do it on a weekly basis. In fact, we already agreed that next week we're going to talk about Elizabeth Bathory, who is the Countess of Blood.
Yes.
So that's a good one. We sound great. Okay, good.
Okay, good.
Like I said, our internet is spotty, and I think it's just a little bit of technical difficulties. So anyway, more guillotine facts, and then we'll switch to a couple other stories with the headless thing, is that in Germany, the Nazis actually...
Yeah, Rhonda, she's hardwired. I'm on Wi-Fi, so
yeah,
she should not be having a problem.
Yeah, I'm directly hardwired, and she's on... Yeah. Cinderella would be a great topic with the grim fairy tales. We'll save that for another time. Yes. We definitely will keep that in mind, Elizabeth. Yes. In Nazi Germany, Hitler actually absolutely loved the guillotine, that he put guillotines at different stations, and they killed over 16,000 people using the guillotine. So that's a little. I mean, I shouldn't call it a fun fact. It's a sad fact, but it's like the guillotine has been one of those torturous devices that's been throughout histories. Um, Also, when it was first in France, it wasn't a permanent structure. Because, like I said, it was a big show for the French. What they would do is they would drag out the guillotine, put it together, have their beheadings, and then they would take it down and pull it away. But then they realized they started doing so many beheadings, and they started to do convicts and witches and all this other stuff. They just left the guillotine up and left it as like that square thing. So that's it.
Okay. So now you're robotic.
I'm robotic again. All right, take it away. Go on with the headless nun.
The headless nun? Well, what do you guys think? How many of you believe in these stories? How many of you think it's just fun? We want to know.
Yeah, definitely put it in the chat. Now, I will tell you this. This is a personal story from my family. And this is my great aunt. She unfortunately passed away. But she is insisting, and she has told this story for years, that her and her husband, her husband at the time was Carmine, they were traveling down a road in Florida. I don't know where, but they were saying how it was so spooky. There, and I mean, she swears it. I mean, I know this sounds like a ghost story, but she's like, they were on this road. They ended up getting lost. There was fog in the air. It was nighttime. They had no idea where they were going. Nobody for miles on end. And they are insisting that in the middle of the road, there was a woman all dressed in white, and she was like floating to the car without a head. And she says that was the scariest she've ever felt before, that they both turned white and she was hitting him like, get out of here, drive away. And both of them were like stuck in terror as they were looking at this woman wearing white in the middle of the road. Me, okay, I would say this. If there's a headless woman, I want to investigate. I want to see what's going on. I want to figure out who it is. I wouldn't like drive away saying hell no. I want to see, like, where's her head? Am I the weird one?
No, I would, yeah.
Would you stop and investigate, or would you literally like, drive on?
Nope. I would stop and see where her head is. Maybe they could put her back together. I don't know.
Or maybe that's what she's looking for. She's just looking for her head, and then once she comes back to her head, her spirit can finally rest and move on like it should.
Now, every one of these stories takes a little bit a different turn depending on. I mean, I think every country, every area has some ghost story that they believe in, or that they decide to torture children with, because sometimes you just want your child to be a little bit scared.
I personally think all these ghost stories probably stemmed from when they started with the printing press and start to actually write stories that you can read on paper. And the big one that comes to mind is Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I mean, that is a Washington Irving classic. It was actually a series of essays. It wasn't just one story. It was a whole bunch of series. Pardon me, ma'am, do you need help finding your head? I like that. It was a series of essays that he wrote back in 1819. And when you read it, you know the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. He has the pumpkin head. He would ride the horse. And I mean, they even made a movie with Johnny Depp, Tim Burton film. You got to watch it if you haven't watched it. Very good movie. Chicken here, nothing spooky. Oh, but Elizabeth, you're coming to our spooky tales, so that's great.
And these things also tie into what's been, if anybody watches the American, just went out of my head.
American Horror
Stories, yeah.
A lot of these stories tie in.
You see a lot of these different ghost stories that are going to be tied into that.
I know we may or may not have a lot of religious people in the chat. Um, we don't discriminate against any religions, but we may bring up various religions. But there is actually a saint devoted to this.
Yes.
And I might be pronouncing this wrong, so forgive me if I'm pronouncing it, but it's the cephalophore. I believe that's how you pronounce it, or it might be I believe it's cephalophore. And correct me if anybody knows the actual thing. It is from the Greek version of the headless carrier. It is a saint who's always depicted in the Catholicism carrying his own severed head. So, like, you know how you can get all the different saints on your amulets? You can actually get the cephalophore of the headless saint because it signifies those that were martyred during beheadings. Because the truth is, they used the guillotine for so many different falsifying people's arrests and using the guillotine that there were innocent people that got. Oh yes, there was a series, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and if I actually like that because he had that British accent, and he would call I don't remember, but it was a good series. I forget what he called her. He always called her Inspector or something like that. Yes, there is look it up. It's I'll spell it out because I could be butchering the pronunciation of it.
Susanna, how do you pronounce this?
But here, I'll type it up in the chat. Okay, that is cephalophore. Okay. And that is, like I said, that is the headless saint. And he was the martyr for all those who were beheaded. They also used the guillotine to chop up. Yes, the original Lorena Bobbitt. Grimm. Grimm is an incredible series. And I got up to a certain point. I didn't realize that they continued to the end of it. I'm not going to give away any ending, but I have to say I absolutely love how they ended Grimm. Because most of the time when they end like a series finale, it's horrible. I absolutely love the way that they ended Grimm. That's all I'm going to say. Guillotine is pronounced with a Y for the L's. So wait, it's not guillotine, it's guillotine? Is that how it is? Because I've always heard guillotine. So you're saying it's guillotine? But yes, I always want to know how to pronounce because a lot of times I do my reading based on like written words. So I may not. Guillotine. Guillotine. Okay.
No.
No, okay, I appreciate guillotine. Okay, that works. I've heard that too. I heard guillotine and I heard guillotine. Guillotine. We'll call it the guillotine. Thank you. You know, probably some English teachers or pronunciation saying, this girl doesn't know how to pronounce anything.
It's okay, because...
Hey, you know something? This is all about learning something new. That is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to bring out various ideas and learning different things because, you know something? I'm the type, and Laura knows me, that if I don't know something, I'll be the first one to Google it and try to learn more about it. And
we played that game in the car yesterday in an endless drive.
It wasn't even a game. It was like, what was that? And I'm looking it up. I do that always because I love learning. Guillotine is French. Well, see, I never took French.
Don't ask me. I took Spanish. So, you know.
Oh, hello, Kodiak. I'm going to blue you so this way you get a wrench.
There you go, Cody.
There you go, Cody. You've got a wrench now. Okay, so the next thing, I absolutely love this, and I'm definitely going to be butchering the pronunciation on this because it's an Irish Gaelic pronunciation, and there's multiple stories of this. So it's either the Dulacan, Duyacan, Dulahan, Durahan, Dulagan, or the Gon Cayenne. And if I butchered that, I am so sorry. I definitely do not speak Gaelic. But we're going to talk about what I just said, the Dulacan, and I'm just going to pronounce it that way, or it could be Dulacan. This thing is a mythological creature in Irish folklore, and he's depicted as a headless rider on a black horse. He carries his own head high in his hand, so it sounds so much like the Washington Irving Sleepy Hollow. And he is the embodiment of the Celtic god from Dun. What's great about this guy is he wields a whip made from the spines of human corpses. And of course, I'm frozen. So hopefully everybody heard that. I might have been frozen, but I'll just repeat that. He rides and he has a whip of human corpse spines. And that's what he uses to control his horse. And the story goes in the Gaelic tradition is if he stops riding, a death will instantly occur. And if he points to you and calls out a person's name, you will drop dead. So that is the story of the Dullahan, the Dullahan, the Durahan. There's so many different pronunciations and depictions of this particular demon. But I love the fact that he's depicted as this little evil fairy that goes around whipping people with the spines of the dead corpses that he kills. You looking up the pronunciation? Oh, Laura's frozen. No, Laura's muted. Okay, well, while she's muted, I don't know if she realizes she muted. Were you
mentioning? Yes, I'm muted. Just, I'll be right back.
Okay, she's gonna be right back. So I'll do talking. So anyway, like I said, so there's this little demonic, a whole new meaning to cracking your back. Exactly, because there he is going around with this spine, and I could just imagine, like this wavy thing in the air of human bone spines, cracking the whip, pointing them, and basically saying, and you're just going to drop dead. And if he stops running.
Here we have a proper pronunciation here.
Oh, you got a...
That's what I was getting.
Cephalopher.
Oh, for the first one?
Right. That was Susanna giving us the correct pronunciation.
And I'll put the demonic fairy one is here. There's some, like I said, Dullahan, or Dullahan. So that's
Dullahan.
Those are the different pronunciations of that particular word. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be learning new languages about the time we end these shows. I'll be like, this is so interesting. So that is your little demonic fairy. Then, I love this story. We go to Canada. Because like I said, there's stories all around the world. And we could possibly find all these different stories. So there is an area in Canada which is called the Headless Valley. Now, why is it called the Headless Valley? Because what's weird about this valley is people get murdered in this valley and they always take their heads. And it's not like something like the people are dying and the animals are coming and chewing the heads or something like that. Because if the animals are going to come, they're going to eat the whole body. No, these people are literally getting murdered. They're camping out in this valley, heads chopped off, and the police find the bodies. So this actually started back in 1908. There was two brothers. The brothers were Willie and Frank McLeod. They were in the mission through the valley, and the valley is actually called the Nahanni Valley in Canada. They wanted to search for gold, but instead they never returned. It wasn't until 2 years later that their skeletons were found. Both of them were murdered. They were both decapitated. They were left on the side of the river for explorers to find, but they never found their heads. Serial beheaders, like serial killers. I guess they're just keeping the head for different things.
Yeah. There's even a Japanese one, which is basically they believe that there's a soul and that when you you have a spirit and a soul. And when a person dies, if they go to basically a platform of purgatory, and then depending on how they died is whether they actually leave or they stay and haunt. And they believe a lot of those are headless bodies. So, and don't ask me to say the Japanese word for it. Not going to happen.
Can you spell it?
Yeah, I can tell you it's REIKON.
REIKON?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's how I would say it.
If anybody does want to do research, I mean, it's like I said, we're putting up a lot of different cultural ideas, a lot of different stories, and I mean, it's all in regards to headless. And that's why we were like, headless shit. So now back to this Canadian Valley. What's wonderful about this Headless Valley is it's often compared to the United States version of the Grand Canyon. That's how massive and majestic this is. The only way to get into this valley is you have to hike it. You cannot, you have to hike it by foot. You can't drive there. There's no way to drive into it. So if there is people that go missing into this type of valley, so the question is there somebody going around who may be serial beheaders that are attacking these people? There's other stories of other body parts that other bodies that were found completely without their head, and it's like the same story over and over. This is going back all the way to 1908, and it still continues to this day. So obviously, if somebody was alive in 1908, technically they're not going to be chopping off heads at this time. So it leads you to wonder, is it some sort of cult following? Is it some sort of thing that's being presented through the generations, that they're doing something with these heads?
Well, I mean, all the time you hear of parents telling their kids stories, like the Grimm and all that. But a lot of times it's just to scare kids a little bit.
Hi, Adam. Welcome to the show. And I think that's what it is, because fear is one of those emotions when it comes to people that fear, I will go as far as say this, fear equals control. If you can scare people and scare your kids into these different beliefs, it's easier to control. So if mommy and daddy tell you you're not to believe in and they're going to scare you, it will keep your kids in line. So the question is, are all these folklores and stories of what's happening, is it based on truth? Or is it just a means of controlling the masses into paranoia?
One of the two.
Or it could be something totally different that we cannot even begin to comprehend or explore.
Yeah, it's interesting, because just looking up the Headless Nun, you come across all kinds. Africa has one, Asia, Europe, of course, North America, South America. There is, and these are all stories that are based upon somebody being headless. So, every country, every ethnic group, I think, has their own stories, but they're based around the same principle. This one happens to be headless.
If anybody has watched, I mean, I want to say everybody, but then I come to realize that Laura hasn't, the Harry Potter series. I mean, even in Harry Potter, you not only have you have multiple headless characters, but there actually is a ghost, Koi Koi, and she is a Afghana. She's also known as Madame High Heel or Madame Moke.
That was just the one I was going to draw up, because Madame Koi Koi.
Yeah, she's a ghost in Nigeria who haunts the dormitories, hallways, and toilets of the boarding school at night.
Can you imagine? She haunts the toilets.
Well, that's what I said. In Harry Potter, you had the screaming Myrtle, but the only difference is Madame Koi actually would haunt them with her head attached. She was a headless. But in Harry Potter, you had the screaming Myrtle who would haunt the Headless Nick. Thank you. I couldn't think of the name. I saw the character. I couldn't think of his name, but it was Headless Nick in Harry Potter, and then there was Myrtle in the bathroom. So it's like what ends up happening is whenever they do these movies and shows, they're taking it from Moaning Myrtle. They're taking it from past stories. But in this case, Moaning Myrtle comes from Madame Koi Koi. The only thing Madame Koi Koi was headless. So
she had her head, but she didn't have. I believe she didn't have one of her shoes.
I will tell you, Moaning Myrtle. I hate to say this, looks like my former roommate, and I started telling Laura in regards to my former roommate. I won't go into details, but she reminds me exactly of Moaning Myrtle. Like she looks like if my roommate was going to be an actress, that's exactly what she looked like. Was Moaning Myrtle. We used to call her that all the time, but that's another story. Myrtle is annoying, exactly. And then she would cry and scream and whine, and but she had the hots for Harry Potter.
Well, that's nice.
I'm sorry. We're going to turn into Harry Potter. So basically, what we're getting at, and I mean, I'm just, for those who did come in, we want to do this as a weekly discussion topic. We want to have a broad topic and then take that broad topic and narrow it down into little stories, little folklore, little true facts, some history. The first thing we want to know is this something everybody would be interested in? This is only our first show. So like I said, we're throwing out different ideas, strictly talk show. The next question, which I have a poll, if you haven't answered already, is how long would you like this show to be? Because we wanted to keep it for around an hour. I mean, that's usually how we do this. Or we could just keep talking all day long until we decide that we can't talk anymore. Or we could say, something, let's aim for an hour, but depending on what the topic is, some days it might be less, some days. Or you could just say, something, the both of you are evil. We're nothing but creating like the devil's doorway or something like that. Get the hell off of YouTube.
We expect that answer.
We expect, and actually,
we even, are trying to get that answer from
13% of the people have already answered that and said, yes, we are, get off of YouTube. But something, negative feedback is also encouraging feedback as well.
Especially for us. So if you want us really to go off, continue the negative feedback. Because we'll just get further into this.
Cody, that's okay. We were trying to find a time that was suitable, and we're probably going to keep this at an hour each time. Like I said, this was just a introductory show. I showed my little intro, which I have to ask what you all thought of my scary, spooky.
Oh, we even have a nun.
What?
Where'd our nun go?
The nun? What about the nun?
We have the little nun.
I don't know where she went. We did have a nun. We had a nun, and I said, let's save it for the show. Oh, I know where it is. It's on the table. I should have brought it.
We do have a nun. She's not currently headless, but
no. But they had a little. Blamies are headless men described as lacking a head with their facial features on their chests. Blamies, headless.
Ooh, I like that. Headless men sounds great to me.
Like you take the head and you pop it off.
We can try.
When it comes to the head, I mean, even the whole idea of Exorcist, that movie, if you watch Exorcist now, it's not really a scary movie. But when The Exorcist first came out, it was one of the most scariest things you've ever seen because there was nothing like that people could compare it to. And one of the scenes was the whole idea of her head rotating around. Google has some images for you. Men lacking head. That's a different type of head.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the idea behind the whole head detachment, because obviously, once you detach the head, there's the idea of instantaneous death. But then you have these depictions that your head is still alive. Did anybody ever see the movie Mars Attacks, where they take
No.
Pierce Bronson and they take his head off and mix it with oh, what was her name? I can't think of her name, but they switched his head with the dog and her head with him, and they were rotating heads, and he was just nothing but the floating head. And then there's an old movie with just the head, with like the crazy doctor doing experimentations and keeping nothing but the head alive.
My mom does not like horror movies at all. Like,
No,
no. And she, it's partially because my dad used to love to scare her. And I think it was, I can't is it The Fugitive, the one armed man?
The Fugitive was with Harrison Ford. That's what you're talking about.
It's an older movie.
Oh, going
It
back
might
even.
not be The Fugitive. He was a doctor or something, isn't that right?
I'm thinking Twin Peaks with the one armed man. That's a whole nother.
No, not Twin Peaks.
I love Twin. When you say one armed man, the little midget with the one armed man, Bobby did say, I got to put this. My girlfriend and I were laughing while everyone else in the theater was screaming at Exorcist.
Yeah.
I was laughing at it. I thought it was funny. It's such a bad show. Bad horror movies, head of the family.
Oh my Lord.
There is.
That just doesn't sound right.
When what's his name? Hold on. My Cousin Vinny, Joe Pesci. After he did My Cousin Vinny, he actually did a comedy, very low budget comedy, which it was called Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag.
Oh, yeah.
You saw that one?
That.
Okay, so basically he's like a mobster, and something happens where he has to deliver these decapitated heads from the. I mean, I forget what the movie is because it was so long ago, but I cannot forget where the heads are all across the desk, and he wakes up, and the head starts singing Mr. Sandman. It's the funniest. It's the movie called Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag. I remember that Head of the Family. That was one of those creepy, very creepy movie. But that's a cult classic, Head of the Family.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either.
Yes. The animator. You know what? I think I'm very love horror. And we're losing our internet again. We do have to apologize. We are getting bad reception today.
Yeah, so, she sounds like a robot again.
And
now,
so
are you guys hearing her be robotic? And am I the same way to you guys?
You are the same way because I hear you robotic.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And once again, it's saying connection is unstable.
All right. These people need to come out here and check this thing.
They do. Oh, yes. I just a quick aside. I was on the phone with Spectrum in regards to my internet because I'm supposed to be getting X amount of internet. And he's trying to say, that's not the way the internet works. So I tell him I run a speed test on my internet and I'm only running at like 100 megs. And he says, well, we send out 1,200 megs in order for you to get your 1,000 megs. And he's going on and on. I says, I'm not anywhere near. I am hardwired in.
I'm Wi-Fi.
Is Wi-Fi.
And so she's worse than I am, apparently.
So me being hardwired in, there's something wrong. So, of course, he goes through everything at how stupid I am with the computer until he realizes that the technician who put our thing never registered our Wi-Fi. So he says, if he never registered our Wi-Fi to your system, how is it that we're getting Wi-Fi? And he's like, well, they'll give you like low Wi-Fi. So he's like, it's all fixed now. Well, guess what? It's not fixed. So I'm definitely going to be putting a call in again.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? Because I'm the one on Wi-Fi. She's hardwired. If I should be the one having problems.
And we ended up putting everything on airplane mode.
Yeah.
Like I said to her, I said, put your phone, put your laptop, put everything on airplane mode. Let's just deal strictly with, and we're still getting back. So we'll get this squared away soon, everyone. So we apologize about that. But it looks like we're okay for the time being.
New place. We finally finished up my move yesterday. Now Melanie's is a different story because
mine's a whole different story. I've got 2 storage units. I have to try to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with the storage units. So we'll see what happens.
Dawn, I am assuming Dawn is one talking tech to us. Yeah, she's hardwired and I'm just Wi-Fi'd.
Yeah.
Crazy. Because Dawn's saying you're robotic and I'm clear.
It doesn't make sense.
Cody says you both sound like robots.
We both sound. You know what's gonna happen? I'm gonna call them and they're gonna say now that the hardwire is not wired incorrectly.
Yeah.
Anyway, what we're gonna do is we are going to end this here because I know a lot of people said that they wanted to go to an auction. Rhonda said she wanted to go to
an antique
show. Somebody said they had to go to work. But what we're going to do is we are going to make this a weekly show.
Yes.
We will have more information. It's just this was but we wanted to introduce scary shit. So next week, we are going to focus on Madame Bathory, the Countess of Blood. So if you like blood stories, the lore of vampires, the lore of how...
She's the blood countess.
The blood countess.
Look her up. She is the blood countess. And there are many things that segue off of her also.
Yes.
Again, I think no matter what story, what type of ghost story it is, there are regions that have very similar stories.
Yes. And you'll hear different views from all around the world. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love learning. So definitely tune in next time. Yes, but Cody, there are other stories of different people who do drink blood and how it segues. So we'll give you more information about that next week. We just want to give a little snippet that we are going to be talking about Madame Bathory.
Killed a crap ton of her serving. Well, yeah. The first ones dead are going to be your serving girls, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and back then, they really didn't keep records that it didn't matter if certain people went disappearing.
Yeah.
So
nobody cared.
They don't care. I mean, I sometimes wonder now, does anybody care with the amount of people that go disappearing in a year? Poof. Vanish. Gone. Did they get sucked into another dimension, another portal? Did somebody kill them? Who knows what happens to people? It's scary. But like I said, we're going to be presenting more and more scary topics. If you want to be a guest on our show, contact either one of us. If you have any, we'll take down ideas for future shows. Somebody mentioned about Cinderella. I would love to do a topic on nothing but fairy tales, because that alone is a great topic.
Yes,
I mean, we all grew up to those stories of the fairy tales, how the original fairy tales, they weren't Disney-fied and pretty like they are. They were actually horror stories and scary stories for children.
Okay, now you're all fuzzy and pixelated.
We're getting pixelated again. So everyone, have a great day. We will figure out our internet issues. Don't forget, join us this Friday. We're having not one, but 2 auction sales. So we're going to have a morning auction, and we'll have our 7 p.m. auction with Bikini King.
Yeah, Paula, I it should be the other way around, and I can't even fathom why Melanie being hardwired would be worse than my Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
We'll figure it out, though. We'll keep calling until they make it right.
Yeah, we'll get them to figure this out. Until next time, everyone, have a great day. This is Melanie and Laura, and we will be back Friday for sale and next week with the spooky stuff.
Yes.
Take care.
Bye.